Hey guys, Harry BHF here. So, a couple of weeks ago, I watched all of the Tom Cruise Mission Impossible films in chronological order, and I found that they're all very different films. Like, they don't have the same vibe as one another, if you know what I mean. And I also felt that there are definitely some films in the series that are better than others. So, I decided I would rank them all from worst to best and make a video about it. Just a quick disclaimer before we start. This list is just my personal opinion. It's completely subjective. If you've got your own ranking of the films, feel free to leave a comment down below. So yeah, without further ado, let's begin.
Number 6. Mission Impossible 2.
So while I don't hate this film, I really don't care for it all that much either. Um, I just feel there's really nothing to this film. The plot revolves around this guy called Sean Ambrose who wants to kill a bunch of people with a disease called Chimera, and Ethan Hunt just has to stop him. That's literally the plot. There's nothing else to it. Like, all the action sequences, I feel they're just shoehorned in the film. There's no particular meaning to them, and I don't see any reasons to why they need to be in the film. Uh, I think the characters, they're either on the good side or the bad side. There's no real character there, if you know what I mean. I just don't feel they're all that interesting. And the slow mo, oh my god, they overuse it to hell in this film, particularly in the second half of the film where they're at that kind of island and then they have the motorbike chase. Like, that whole portion of the film has way too much slow mo in it, and it's literally every 5 seconds. I think the editing is actually probably the worst editing I've ever seen in any film. But not to say there aren't any positives. I think that the music score is probably the best in the series. I do really like the music in this film. And also the motorbike chase, despite being heavily slow mode, which I wasn't a fan of, I think it's still a decent enough sequence. But there isn't really much else I like. And so for those reasons, this film ranks as the worst film in the Mission Impossible series for me.
Number 5.
So from this point onwards in the list, these are all the films which I like. So number 5 through to number 1 range from pretty good to phenomenal films. And so starting off this list of films that I like is.
Mission Impossible, the original film.
So as I said, I do think this film is pretty good. It certainly lays a perfect template for future installments in the Mission Impossible film series. And I also think that a lot of the hardcore spy stuff in this film is really good. Like, in films like James Bond, we've come to expect lots of gunfire, lots of action. Because obviously, thanks to that series, that's what we expect, and usually we get that. But this film, Ethan Hunt never actually fires a gun in the whole film, and it's a different take on the spy genre, which I do appreciate. Um, the only reasons why this film isn't higher on the list is that, firstly, I think that there are certainly films which I would take over this one, and also there are a couple of boring dialogue scenes in the film, like the scene where Ethan Hunt demands $150,000 or whatever from Vanessa Redgrave's character. Like, that scene and a couple of the other dialogue scenes in this film just drag on. They're just so long and so dull. But apart from that, there are some really good scenes in this film, such as the now iconic scene where Ethan Hunt has to steal the agents list and he's on the wire going in the vault, and then he's hanging like an inch from the ground. Like, that scene is just phenomenal. It's so quiet. There's very little dialogue. It's basically perfect. So yeah, all the hardcore spy stuff I really like, but I just wish it didn't drag on quite so long in some parts. But so yeah, that's my verdict on the original Mission Impossible film.
Number 4. Mission Impossible 3.
So the first time I saw this film, I was actually really surprised at how dark and brutal it is. It's fantastic. Definitely the darkest film in the series, in my opinion. Um, I think also the action sequences are just some of the best. Like, there's this particular sequence on a bridge where everything just gets blown up. It gets so over the top, but it's so good at the same time. And I do love the sequence where Ethan Hunt is basically jumping off a skyscraper onto another one. And then he has to try and get in this building. It's really, really good. That's towards the end of the film in Shanghai. And I think we can also agree that this film probably has the best villain in the Mission Impossible series in the form of Owen Davian, who Hunt believes is responsible for Julia getting killed, although obviously it isn't actually Julia, it's someone else with a mask on, because they do that in the Mission Impossible films where it's like people pulling masks off. And if you've seen the films, you'll know what I mean. The only reason why this film isn't higher is that, just like the original, I just feel there are films which I would rather watch to this one. But really, I can't. Maybe I'm being a bit harsh, but I can't really think of anything else that I don't like about this film. It's just these next three are better. But I do think this film has got some brilliant sequences and the best villain in the series, I think, and also Ethan Hunt getting married. It's a real kind of emotional connection you feel. Like, you can put yourself in Ethan Hunt's shoes more than any other film, I think. So yeah, that's what I think of Mission Impossible 3. Now time to get into the top 3 films.
Number 3, Mission Impossible Ghost Protocol.
So I think that this film has some of the best action set pieces in the whole series, particularly the Dubai sequence where um, Ethan Hunt is basically climbing up the Burj Khalifa, which, for those of you that don't know, is the tallest building in the world. Though you probably should know that, but you know. And there's also the Russian sequence at the start, which I also really like, partly because it's got this really funny bit where they have this kind of paper panel in the corridor, so it looks like there's nothing there, but there's actually Ethan Hunt and Benji, Simon Pegg's character, there scanning stuff in it, and then it glitches and it kind of makes the corridor look like it's just magically like flickering left and right and stuff. And also Benji like gets in front of the camera and his face is like super magnified on the corridor. It was really funny, but I did love that bit. And also just the whole sequence, all the spy stuff I really enjoy. All the characters are really colourful, you know. Especially Simon Pegg is really funny, as always. Like, I really like him in films like Hot Fuzz and stuff. Like, he's just a comedy genius in my mind. Also, I think the final fight sequence in the parking lot is pretty good as well, between Ethan Hunt and Kurt Hendricks, the main villain of the film. I think his name is Kurt Hendricks. I might be getting it wrong or something, but yeah, I think that fight sequence is really good. The only reason why this film isn't in the top 2 is because I think the whole party sequence in India is a bit long and it's a bit slow. I wish they had made that scene more exciting because it takes up quite a bit of the whole film, because the film is like 2 hours and 10 minutes long or something. But yeah, really good film. I would recommend it. So yeah, let's get into the top 2 films.
Our runner-up is Mission Impossible Fallout.
So obviously this is the most recent Mission Impossible film, having only come out last year, which for those of you watching in the future was 2018. Just every scene in this film is brilliant, really. I especially love the Paris sequence where there's the car chase, the motorbike, the scene where the truck slams into the other under Solomon Lane, which is one of the villains in the film. He gets kind of... He's doing the heavy breathing before the water goes on. He's like... It's just so good. I think that, obviously, this is where some of Tom Cruise's stunts are definitely the biggest, particularly where he's hanging off the helicopter and he slides down and he hits the bag. You just got to commend Tom Cruise for doing his own stunts. I mean, they're pretty extraordinary. And I also love the fact that they brought Henry Cavill into the cast lineup, because his character is just so gritty, and the fact like him being revealed as a baddie is very unpredictable, kind of like how Jim Phelps was revealed as a baddie in the first film. Though this didn't actually disappoint people, unlike back in '96. But I think the thing that really makes this film like really, really good is just the cinematography. Like how they just capture everything is just so, like, there's just so much going on everywhere. It's so vibrant. It's just gorgeous, really. Like, they actually expands the, like, on the Blu-ray of the film, they have some scenes where the aspect ratio is expanded, so like it covers the whole screen. It just looks so good, like with all the particularly the helicopter chase, where you just zoom out and the helicopters are flying and there's all the mountains in the background. It just looks so brilliant, really. But the reason this isn't on the top list is this one major letdown for me, and I'm probably just nitpicking here, but they have Julia from Mission Impossible 3 reappear, and like at first it's just a few flashbacks at the start, like something that's going on in Hunt's mind and stuff. Like the opening scene is him having a nightmare at their wedding where like Solomon Lane is, the vicar, and he's like, "You should have killed me, Ethan." That's my best Sean Harris impression. Like that stuff like that I like, but then they kind of reveal her as actually being alive, and her getting remarried to someone else, and like he's like, "Oh, I'm sorry, Ethan." I could have done without that, but it's still a fantastic film as it is, so I'll lay off. So yeah, Mission Impossible Fallout is my second favourite film, and let's find out what my number one film is.
Number 1. Mission Impossible Rogue Nation.
I'm only going to briefly cover this because there are many reasons why I really, really enjoyed this film. But I think the best thing about it is how it combines all the great elements of the previous films into one neat package. So, you have the spy stuff and the complexity of the first film. Um, this is hard. The motorbike chase of the second film was the best thing I could think of. Except this time it's much better because it's not heavily slow mode. Hooray! You also have the amazing villain of the third film, and the just brilliant action set pieces of the fourth. And so combining all those into one neat package, I really, really like, and that's why it's my favourite film in the series, because it's like great stuff all in one film, it's not spread across several ones. And also is just the depth of the characters in this film. Have Solomon Lane, the amazing villain, who obviously appears in Fallout because Fallout is the direct sequel to Rogue Nation. And here and in Fallout, he's just brilliant. Like in this film, he basically tries to become prime minister, and he's head of the Syndicate, which is like a terrorist organization. And that's what Ethan Hunt is going up against. It's really, really just a very powerful film, this, and the plot is very powerful too. And then you have Ilse Faust, who is this character who she's clearly quite troubled because she goes between bad and good a lot throughout the film. Like in the opera scene in Vienna, she's kind of bad, and then she goes to the good side later on, and then back to the bad side again. It's kind of confusing, but I can get my head around it at least because she's actually on the good side throughout the whole of Fallout. And if you were to ask me any things I don't like about this film, there really aren't any. Literally, I think it's probably one of my favourite action spy films of all time, and I do rate it very highly. So yeah, that's Mission Impossible Rogue Nation, my thoughts on it, and why it's my favourite film in the series. Right, so that was my ranking of all 6 Mission Impossible films from worst to best. Hopefully you enjoyed this video. Something a bit different. I've never done a movie-based video on my channel before, and I am hoping to make more videos like this in the future because everyone loves to watch films, and I enjoyed making this video. So, yeah. If you've got your own ranking of the films, feel free to leave a comment down below. And other than that, yeah. Thank you guys very much for watching, and see you later. Bye for now.